So, Sonic 3 has released on digital, and I've got some thoughts. Not specifically on that movie, though I do have some thoughts on that regarding one specific Blue Hedgehog, but that's not about him right now, which is funny considering the name of the movie, but I want to talk about my thoughts regarding the fourth Sonic movie. The fourth one, not the... You get it. Ever since I watched the third movie in theaters, I've had some speculations and wants starting to bubble up inside me, and I want to share them. So while I might end up titling this video with something like theories in the title, it's a lot less of that and a lot more speculation in stuff I really want to have happen within the film. Maybe like a top 10 list, but like not like actually a top 10 list, but you get it. But it definitely isn't a movie script pitch video, which might be something I do later. Just like the Spider-Man stuff, I like writing stories. I kind of want to write something for this, so I won't be able to help myself. That's all it is. For starters, it's pretty obvious by now, and spoiler warnings for the most important elements of this movie in case you haven't seen the third's post-credit scenes. Amy and Shadow are going to be involved in some way. Amy most likely more majorly than Shadow himself, although maybe Shadow doesn't appear at all. That'd be kind of neat. Considering his popularity though, I have my doubts on that. Like, he aura forms that fucking hard throughout the whole movie and you're gonna say he's not gonna be in the next one? Okay, bro. Fuck. Either way, in regards to Shadow, I'd love it if he was kept away from the family dynamic that Sonic and everyone else has built for themselves. This Shadow's personality is pretty different from Game Shadow, but even then he still feels much more like a loner type character than anything else. I think it'd be infinitely more fun for him to be some sort of wanderer. A guy who drifts from place to place, city to city in search of something to do that doesn't involve murdering all of humanity. Something else that could be interesting, which ties into another thing, Shadow joining Gun and forming Team Dark. Shadow kind of needs his own team. I can see him thinking getting involved with Sonic's family dynamic would be like replacing the family that he once had. To me, it makes much more sense for him to forge that family on his own rather than to join something that doesn't have a perfect spot ready for him. Following that, Omega and Rouge should join the cast too. I'm less hopeful for Omega. To be completely honest, his whole backstory of being an abandoned Eggman creation seems a little harder to interpret with what the films have shown so far, though I can still see it being adapted in some way. Rouge would be equally difficult, what with her having to come from another world. However, it might be kind of interesting if she comes from the same place Amy does. In fact, on second thought, if the rumors of time travel are real, and that does seem to be the case, it might be kind of cool if Amy and Rouge are attempting to mount some kind of resistance against Eggman in their own time, battling the army of Metal Sonics on their own. Maybe you could make Omega into a robot created by Gun using designs that Robotnik created during his time there, or he's still an abandoned robot that goes rogue, like after Eggman creates the first Metal Sonic and then proceeds to move on with mass producing those. His first attempt at a robot strong enough to kill Sonic or take over the world or whatever, Omega gets thrown to the wayside, found by Rouge or Amy or both, and becomes a member of the Resistance. Another thing that could be cool... Okay, first let's talk about the games that the Sonic movies are apparently able to adapt from. In that list are Heroes and CD, which are probably the ones they're going to pull from for this film. A lot of people have been saying that. I also feel like it's the only natural progression, but I mean, maybe they could get freaky. Whatever, I don't know. My thing is, would Eggman conquering the world, taking it over, and the heroes forming a resistance to fight against the Eggman Empire be too much of a nod to Sonic Force's plot? It isn't in the list of games that Paramount has the rights to, but the concept of war isn't exactly one that can be copyrighted or whatever. At least I think so. I'm not sure. I think the premise of like having Sonic and everyone else come from the past to fix the war-torn world of the future is a pretty cool idea. Plus, I think it'd make for some pretty cool set pieces and action scenes, but I'm not sure if that is departed enough from like Eggman just taking over the world and Sonic and everyone forming a resistance to fight back. I don't know if that would count as Forces' plot, and they wouldn't be able to use it. Assuming that it doesn't step on any toes or anything, I think going to the future and saving the world is really, really cool. Like, imagine a scene where Sonic and Shadow are just completely tearing through an army of Metal Sonic robots. A lot like how Shadow just bulldozed all the Mephiles doubles with his rings off. Bro, fucking imagine Shadow taking off the inhibitor rings to trounce a shit ton of Metal Sonics. Sonic 3 restored my faith in the movies about like their action scenes. That final fight of Sonic and Shadow together is so fucking sick. I would love to see them do something similar with the waves of Metal Sonic robots, and obviously it wouldn't just be Sonic and Shadow involved, everyone else would get their moments too, but like, you know, it'd just be so cool. This is a personal thing for me. I think these movies gotta start paying a little more attention to the characters besides Sonic. Like, Tails had a little bit more to do in this movie than he did in the second one, but for Knuckles, compared to the second movie, oh my god, at least in terms of like physicality and fights, Knuckles got shafted, bro. In his solo series, he's supposed to have leveled up the Flames of Disaster or whatever. He beat down Sonic until the very end in the second movie. Bro was a threat and a man on a mission. Knuckles fans were eating so good with that shit, bro. But now, in the third movie, Knuckles got batted away like a fly, bro. Like, sure, everyone got clowned on in that first confrontation, but Knuckles didn't even get a round 2 with Shadow, bro. Not that he even really needed one, but a better showing in the first fight would have been so nice. And I get why they did it. It makes sense. You take who essentially the villain of the last movie was, and you have him get destroyed by the new one to show Shadow's strength. That happens all the time. But man, come on. I don't want to see my guy get dogged on like that again. So, not just for Knuckles, but all the characters in the movie, it'd be awesome if they each got some sort of moment that showed they were some kind of a badass. It doesn't even necessarily need to be a fight, just something that lets us know, oh yeah, bro's still him. Maybe like getting Tails to wire up some sort of tech that can help deactivate the mass amounts of Metal Sonics running around, or just cut them off from communicating with their central command or something, or Knuckles like using that absurd strength of his to bust open an unbreakable barrier, or lifting something really, really heavy to save everyone else. Anything that reminds us that these characters are still capable of kicking ass in their own individual ways. On a semi-related note, I am really, really hoping that Metal Sonic isn't going to be forgotten as a character here. Like, he's the main villain, obviously, or presumably, but making a bunch of copies, like having all those copies be presented as basically fodder, and like not really having like a like a full Metal Sonic confrontation, it just feels bad. It feels like my guy is getting disrespected, you know? I noticed that in the footage, maybe it's just me coping, I don't know. It looks like there's some small design differences between the first medal that appears in the credits scene and the 20 others that surround Sonic. Like, the other medals are all a duller gray color and have some yellow eyeshadow type stuff around the outside of their eyes. I don't know if it's actually yellow, it just looks yellow to me. Specifically, what I'm hoping this means is that there's only one Prime Metal Sonic, and the rest are all mass-produced lesser versions. Like, there's one big boss medal that orders the others around. Because turning Metal Sonic into pure fodder and basically having him replace the egg pawns as robots for Sonic and his friends to beat up seems kinda cringe. I'm not the biggest fan of the idea of having a shit ton of Metal Sonics in the first place, but it isn't like Eggman doesn't make other models. So as long as we know there's one true Metal Sonic and that he's not fodder like the rest, I think I'll be pretty chill with this movie. Something else on that note that could be fun if Jim Carrey does come back for this sequel, it'd be sick if Metal was already upgraded to be Neo Metal in the future. Maybe Eggman got sent to that time off screen, died off screen, then Neo Metal took over as the ruler. It's like not totally on my list of things that I absolutely want for this film. I much prefer Eggman existing, and I especially dislike the idea of Eggman dying of an illness or whatever off screen, but Neo being the one to lead the Metal Sonic seems kinda cool. Though depending on how far in the future they go, it'd also be interesting to see Agent Stone take up the mantle of Eggman in the place of his dead friend. Maybe he created Metal Sonic. I'm a lot less sure on that since Stone actually seems kinda chill with Sonic and everyone else, and only fights them because he sides with the Doctor, but I can see it being an interesting direction nonetheless. Now these last few things are just some miscellaneous thoughts that I had that don't have nearly as good of a segue into them, but I still wanted to throw them out there. Little Planet in the Time Stones would be fun to see. I'm just not entirely sure how they'd be easily implemented into the story. Having Sonic mature just a little bit more would be nice too. I really hate the fact that the character I like the least in these Sonic the Hedgehog movies is Sonic the Hedgehog. So if we could make him a little less lame, a little less annoying, and a tiny bit more mature, I'd finally be able to say I like movie Sonic, because right now, I don't. Now finally, the last thing I'd love to see is all of the Metal Sonics combining together and forming Metal Overlord. I don't even think they necessarily need to turn Metal into Neo Metal, or have him gain the hero's bio data. I feel like just having all the metals do like a crazy melding thing would be pretty dope. Either way, I was severely disappointed in the lack of actual big lizard final boss type fight, so having Super Sonic take on Metal Overlord, that'd make up for that disappointment. It'd also just be the coolest fucking thing ever. Like, let's be so dead ass. Giant Metal Overlord, Super Sonic, Super Shadow, maybe the others are super too, maybe they get a bubble, I don't care. They fucking beat Metal oh my god. Like, you get it, bro, you get it. You understand, bro. Oh my god, that'd be so cool. Anyway, who and what do you want to see in the next Sonic movie? I know I don't have anybody watching this channel, but I'd love to get a few comments and see people's opinions all the same. Despite my liking of Sonic the Hedgehog, I never actually look too hard into the community's opinions on stuff, so I'd love to hear yours. That's it. Bye. Have fun.